made it to Bay of LA. The guy that had all their gas cans had to leave early. We went to the Pemex and they had 85 octane. So I was like, give me 4 gallons and I'll try to get better stuff later. I don't know where my team is. There's no service. I pull up my Racing Tracks tracker. I get messages coming in saying that they are not going to make the next pit either. So I was like, son of a gun, this isn't good. So BFG was there. So I pull into BFG pit 6 and I say, I'm really sorry, I'm using MRTs. It's a great tire. You guys have great tires also. Can I get some fuel, please? And they were like, absolutely. So those guys were total studs. I didn't completely have a full tank of gas because I got to BFG before I did the 20-mile cut across. Basically, I got gas at race mile 765, and I started to get ready to do a loop that would take me all the way to 945. So I was really using the extent of all of my gas. So on this little car, I was running in the stock class, which means I can run the stock tank, but also you can run a fuel cell if you'd like. And so when I built the car, I actually called the tech director and I said, if I can use either or, can I use both? And they approved it as long as it was all safe. But ultimately what I did is I ended up building in a transfer pump hooked to a jacuzzi timer that then I could just twist it to 15-minute and allow it to just go and pump 5 gallons of gas. So when my stock tank said that I was like down to 2 bars, I would just give the jacuzzi timer a full twist, 15 minutes, 5 gallons of gas. I wouldn't think about it again, and it would slowly pump and fill me back up. I get 8 to 10 miles to the gallon, so I was stretching it. Long story short, I go and I take off onto that loop, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It was one of the most technical, most gorgeous, just crazy sections that I've ever been on. Anybody that has raced that section will tell you it was absolutely epic. There was one point where I'm going up this hill climb and it was pouring rain, there was mud everywhere, and I was getting horrible gas mileage at that point. I was chewing through the gas that I had and I was freaking out because that was going to be my longest section. I ended up pulling over to a family that was running a Baja pits. They were camping there that night, but I was able to buy 5 gallons of gas for $100 and have their family like scrape off mud, and they got me a tortilla with some cheese in it, which was awesome. And I got on my way. After, it was really dark, but I was going through some giant puddles. It was pouring rain. I was completely soaking wet. And around race mile 900, there was a car parked to the side of the road. And there was these 2 dudes that literally jumped in front of me and got me to stop. They said that they were there providing support for one of their team members. They were driving back out when they ran out of gas. They were freezing cold. The navigator was like not doing well at all. And they were begging me if I could spare any fuel. Well, I just got that extra 5 gallons and I only had about 30 miles to go until I was meeting my crew on the outside of that. So I decided I couldn't leave these guys just freezing their butts off in the pouring rain. I mean, you could see your breath. It was very cold. So I rerouted my fuel lines and I gravity fed them a couple of gallons until I had a couple of bars, and then put it all back together and then got on my way. So this will come into play later. I get to the pit, I'm sopping wet.
Howdy.
David!
Davey boy!
Good to see you.
You know what would be a cool idea next time? I'm gonna bring like a camper, and then everyone has a place to go and get out of the weather, and beds. And
I like that idea.
Yeah.
My wife pulls me into the truck, the heater's on, I literally just get naked, strip it all off. She's giving me a little bit of food. I'm like shivering like crazy. She puts a towel over me to warm up. My guys get to work on the car. Now, this is the pit 10, that they realize that the bearing issues that I've had this entire time is not due to my bearings at all. It's due to the washer that's on my axle not being thick enough, so it wasn't applying good enough pressure to the bearing. So even though it was kind of tight when we retightened it, every time it was still bottoming out on the shaft and it wasn't giving it a full squeeze. So literally it would be kind of tight, but once I started moving, it would get loose and it would start making all those horrible, horrible noises that I was hearing the entire time, telling me that the tire was about to rip off and pass me. at any moment. So the reason for babying and going 45 when I could have been going 65 or 70. They put the car back together. They put big spacers on. They tightened everything up. They tightened up the steering. They got the car back to 100%.
Okay, David, 3 words. How was today?
Dude, it's been
Or a lot of words.
just really challenging. Today's, like, all the different sections that they've thrown out us today, like the section I just did, it's like, I'm not being very helpful. I don't have very good words to describe.
How about wet, muddy, and something?
It was the most technical section I've ever done in my entire life.
Wow.
Like, just technical. Rock crawls and dips and tucks in and out.
We're here at the Catavina Hotel. Did the Catavina Loop yesterday. It was 130 miles. Very, very brutal. A lot more challenging than I anticipated. We're gonna go do that one more time. I mean, it's something that we really are dreading because it took a lot out of us yesterday. It was, I think, a good 6 hours, maybe 7 hours.
And then water would get on my phone screen, and it would blur it would make it like go to a different, phone.
Well, I cleaned your screen for you, so you're good to go.
Gosh,
How
the
bad?
stuff that I've seen today has been spectacular, but has beat the crap out of me. Most of the time, a Baja 1000 would be 1,000 miles, and I would say I'm 80 miles from the finish, but it's obviously 1,310 miles, so I still have 300 miles today. It's like
You
a
do.
Silver State 300 that I'm starting at 11 o'clock at night after doing 1,000 miles already. We have a work ahead of us, but I'm confident, man. Like, I feel good. Nate just told me that, like, the car's been redone.
Yeah,
So-
you're in tip-top shape.
Yeah.
We're going to run into you in a couple hours. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
I was able to get a new driving suit that was completely dry and warm and felt amazing. I got in the car and they said, like, go. Like, at this point, we have about 10 hours left and 300 miles. Like, I need to go, and I need to go fast. So I take off, I do the big long highway section, and I realized during that section that when I had opened up my fuel line to gravity feed, some dirt had gotten into my transfer pump or something, but it would make noise, but it wasn't pumping. I couldn't transfer any fuel from the back to the front, so it means I'm only using 9 usable gallons of gas instead of 9 plus 13. So I get to the end of the road crossing, we fill up the bottom tank again, and I take off on the long San Felipe section. It was actually really funny because I start bombing San Felipe. Everybody knows the giant whoops in San Felipe. And I'm like, what in the world is going on with this car? For the first time, I had a car that I could actually race, and I realized that the suspension is just garbage. So I hurry and jump out, and I do 2 clicks on the front and 2 clicks on the rear. And I jump back in, and I start driving, I start bombing whoops, and I'm like, it's still too soft. So I jump back out, I do 2 more clicks in the front, making it firmer, 2 more clicks in the rear. I start going, and I'm bombing stuff, and I'm like, man, that rear end, it's too much now. So I need to take one out. So I jump out, run around, take one out of the back, hurry and jump in, start driving. I'm like, oh yeah, that rear end's perfect. This is handling really well. And I realize on the chattery stuff, my front end is a little bit too stiff. So crap, jump out again, run, back down. The front shocks, 1 click each, jump back in, and then, oh my gosh, the suspension was absolutely phenomenal. Robert Campbell, he did all the shims and all the fluids and everything with the shocks. The shocks were absolutely amazing. They just needed a bonehead to make a couple of clicking adjustments, which I had never done. Earlier in the race, the first 1,000 miles, I didn't touch the suspension because I was always babying the car, worried about the bearings. So it was nice to actually get the suspension set up and start hauling butt. So I take off into the San Felipe section. I go through Matomi Wash. I'm making all of those sections. The car and the suspension is running really, really well. I'm having a great time. I make it north of San Felipe, and I'm cruising. And the entire time I'm trying to run my transfer pump, and just nothing is happening. I have full gas back there. It's not transferring down. So I'm just running off of my 9-gallon tank, and it's a pretty long section. So I get within like 10 miles of my pit north of San Felipe, and the car is like on empty, and it keeps sputtering and cutting out, and then it cuts back in, it cuts out. I had been running the transfer pump the entire time. I think it was like putting through a little bit of fuel, but not very much. And I was just like, man, what do I do? Do I stop and let it just charge up so I'm not killing the motor and starting and killing and starting it? Or do I try to do a bypass and fix it permanently? Like, I was really tight on time, and I was just like, man, what do I do? What do I do? Well, the decision was absolutely made for me, because what was in the middle of the road? Pair of stuck boards. So I was like, oh baby, I'm not missing this opportunity. I've been stewing about this for the last 18 hours, and I'm stopping. I'm gonna run the pump. I'm gonna get those stuck boards. I was like so freaking happy. Got in the car and had a little bit more fuel so I could race to that other pit. Now, what was funny is when I got to the San Felipe area and the sun had come up, I'd actually FaceTimed my ex-wife so I could wave to the kids and say hi to them. So I'm driving and I'm waving to them from the phone that I was navigating by. And, you know, I can't talk. I can just wave and smile and whatever. And I could see the kids crowded around the phone, which was really cool. Well, we end that conversation and my ex-wife is texting the crew saying, hey, he just like called us and he looks like garbage, which I'm sure I did. I mean, this is 2 full nights now that I had been racing. And she's like, I'm really worried for him that he's gonna hurt himself. It got them all super worried. So when I finally get to that pit, Nate is in his full gear, ready to be like, let me take over. Let me just take it to Valley to Trinidad and give you a break.
Okay, you're good. Are you good?
For 33.
100%. Beyond.
And so I'm having to sit there and try to convince the crew that mentally I'm sound enough to be able to continue on and do the whole Ironman. And
1,000% good.
All right.
we worked that all out. Everything was fine. Fueled me just the bottom tank again and got on my way. So at that point, it was getting really, really close to time. I was bombing the whoops at the very, very top cut across road, just trying to go as fast as I possibly could. Mentally, it was a huge milestone to have made it through San Felipe. 150 miles to go. Just drive across the peninsula, go through Ojos, drop down into Ensenada to the finish line. All familiar roads. I couldn't help but chuckle at the predicament of having to convince the team that I was okay to go on. I was actually overwhelmed with gratitude for those people who came to support me in this dream of mine. They all had to take a week off of work, leave family, burn vacation time. I mean, Jake volunteered his truck to go down the peninsula as Chase 2. Derek and Nate bought their own plane tickets to La Paz. And the Canadians, Jason, Mel, and Ron, well, they drove down from Canada. Everyone made huge personal sacrifices to be there. So even if you're doing the Baja 1000 alone, Ironman style, it still takes a group of incredible people. I couldn't let them down. 150 more miles. I got this. Or do I?